You guys, could we ask you a quick favor? Would you take just about 5 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe? Doesn't take much time, but it means a lot and helps other parents find their way to what we hope is some helpful content.
Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas, and we're so glad you've joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
We were just talking before this started about how much we like fives.
And how much we learned about fives from sitting with two wise, remarkable 5 parents.
Yes. One of my universal experiences with fives is I always want to hear who they're reading.
Yes.
You know, they just read great things. They watch great things.
Yes,
they learn
do.
great things. We have so much to learn from the fives in our world.
We do. I'm excited to talk about them. So should we jump in?
Jump in.
Well, the 5 is often referred to as the investigator or the observer. And 5s bring an incredible set of strengths rooted in curiosity, insight, and independence. We're going to talk about all 3 of those along the way. So let's first identify some strengths, and then we'll talk about some struggles. I would first say 5s are insightful and perceptive. They are so skilled at noticing patterns, connections, and underlying truths, and they often see beyond the surface and can identify what other people might miss.
Yes. And 5s are analytical and knowledgeable. They love learning and excel at gathering information. A lot of my 5 friends will send me articles about pertinent things regularly, which I love. I think my mom leaned hard into 5.
Do you?
Yes. And so many mornings I would come to the breakfast table and there'd be a newspaper clipping on my... Actually, she was 5 with a lot of 6, so it was usually something I needed to be on guard against on my plate. I remember one, I've already told you this story. That has nothing to do with 5s. Y'all just hang in there and indulge us for a second. One time, it was a woman who had a chihuahua, and a hawk had picked up the chihuahua. Thankfully, it was on a leash. So she jerked it out of the hawk's mouth, and that was my warning to always be aware of hawks with small dogs.
There you go.
But it came from a newspaper clipping because she had so much 5 in her.
And every dog you've owned has been safe since.
That's right, exactly right, because of Mom. They can distill complex ideas, such as that, into clear insights and often become experts in their chosen fields. And I wanted to give another 5 anecdote. I think the technology world has just opened so much expansively in terms of careers. And don't you feel like a majority of people that we meet in the technology world, so many of them are 5s, that really, I mean, the world could not function without 5s in those ways.
So true. They are objective and rational. 5s approach situations with logic and reason, which helps them remain calm in a crisis, and a part of what I would say is a superpower for them as parents, because when kids could get really dysregulated, I think their capacity for staying strong and steady is extraordinary out of that. And their ability to detach emotionally allows them to see multiple sides of an issue, which is why, honestly, I think our 5 friends are some of the best folks to have conversations with right now at a complex time in our world, because they're not necessarily going to get so whipped up. They're not going to be operating out of extreme emotions, and they can see a lot of sides and perspectives.
Yes.
So if you feel overwhelmed by what's happening in the world right now, maybe a 5 friend would be a good person to talk with.
I love that. 5s are also highly independent and self-sufficient. They value autonomy and can function well on their own. Their independence makes them resourceful and capable of finding creative solutions without relying heavily on others, which is certainly needed among kids in today's world. So it's something we want to help further in their little lives and hearts.
They are focused and innovative. Once intrigued, 5s can dive deeply into a subject with intense concentration. Their curiosity and dedication often lead to new discoveries, original thinking, and innovative problem solving.
They have a calm and thoughtful presence. And I said this to our 2 dear friends that are 5s that we interviewed. They're some of the best question askers I know. They're great conversationalists. They're not usually reactive, as you mentioned, and they bring a steadiness and thoughtfulness to relationships and work. And therefore, I think people really respect them so much for that. And their quiet confidence often creates a sense of trust and stability in others. It's certainly true from my experience.
I think I may have even commented after our conversation with those two how my heart rate was like my resting heart rate in the morning when I first get out of bed. Like I felt so
Wow.
calm. Their tone, their volume, their very
Yes.
presence, like I think just had this infectious calming of my nervous system that I experienced.
It's so good.
And there will be other numbers that might take my heart rate up a bit, and we'll talk about those coming along. They are protective of energy and boundaries. While sometimes seen as reserved, this ability to guard their time and space also makes fives good at setting healthy boundaries. We could learn a lot from them in that space. And they model intentionality in how they spend their energy and attention.
At their best, Enneagram Fives are wise, visionary, and grounded. They're people who use their deep well of knowledge to enrich others' lives and offer clarity in a complex world. We need more of that.
Yes, we do.
And now we're going to take a little break to hear from one of our sponsors who makes this podcast possible. David, I have to tell you, I think I've officially become that person who looks forward to their morning coffee a little too much.
I have officially been that person for quite some time now. Having a puppy who wakes at the crack of dawn will do that to a person.
Exactly. But regular coffee was starting to make me feel, well, a little puffy and jittery.
I've been there. That second cup can do some damage.
Then I found Everyday Dose. It's coffee plus benefits. Same great taste I love, but without the crash, without the jitters.
And with all the good stuff. It combines 100% Arabica coffee with powerful ingredients like lion's mane and chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics to fuel your brain, boost focus, and give you clean, sustained energy all day long.
My favorite part, it only takes 30 seconds to make. I get my morning coffee plus vitamins, minerals, and amino acids all in one cup.
And it's smooth. I've been trying their Coffee Plus Bold, rich, full-bodied, and still easy on the stomach.
No crash, no jitters, just clean, sustained energy.
Okay, here's the part you don't want to miss. Get 45% off your first subscription order of 30 servings of Coffee Plus or Bold Plus. You'll also receive a starter kit with over $100 in free gifts, including a rechargeable frother and gunmetal serving spoon by going to everydaydose.com/RBG or entering RBG at checkout. You'll also get free gifts throughout the year.
That's everydaydose.com/RBG for 45% off your first order.
Coffee with benefits. Now that's a good morning.
And now back to our show.
Okay, let's go back and forth talking a little about the struggle side of fives. So fives can hide from life and seal themselves off. They maintain a private inner world. They seem to observe rather than actively participate in what goes on around them. And they are driven by an inner sense of scarcity and emptiness. I would argue that I think fives could mistakenly convince themselves at times that they don't need relationships when they, like all of us, absolutely do. And even not just introverted fives, introverted people in every number. Like it's just so important that we keep going back to the refueling, the how we refuel, but that it's not that we don't need relationship. But I think fives could accidentally mistakenly convince themselves that relationship isn't as needed when it is.
Now, statistically, are there more introverted fives than any other number?
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Fives can hide from life out of exactly what you're talking about, seal themselves off from others, and even hide themselves from themselves. They often stay on the periphery of social gatherings, engagement with others, intimate relationships. They believe being on the edge or periphery is an easy escape. They've got an easy out. It sets up that idea of being observers rather than participants.
I heard our dear friend Suzanne Stabile say that she has a theory that fives might often sit close to the exit doors in rooms when they attend events. Just this sense of I could get out without maybe getting trapped by a lot of people, and I have an
Yes.
escape plan in mind if needed. And so
Yes.
a lot of reasons that might be happening. A five's fear can be covered with cynicism and sarcasm, and that appears to be a strength or a cover, but it's about the fear that's underneath. So I would say fives, that's a great thing to pay attention to, of where you might be sliding to the low side of your number if you notice you're getting really cynical and
Mhm.
sarcastic.
And in fact, we would say a lot of the inner dynamics of fives, the inner dynamics and the external behavior is rooted in fear.
Yeah. Fives are afraid pretty much constantly. It starts with the energy drain, which is this amount that every day they are watching, tracking, thinking about, even at times consumed with, knowing that you're going to run out of that energy supply every day.
Do fives have less energy than any other number on the Enneagram?
You would think that to be true. Nines actually have the least energy
Wow.
of any number, but fives have the most measured amount of energy. So that's that difference. Not necessarily the least, but a measured amount that they are tracking, which could look like the least.
And I remember her saying it's the same every day.
There it is.
And it doesn't refill during the day.
Correct.
That it's the same.
Dropping,
set
dropping,
amount.
dropping.
Yes. So let's talk about strengths in parents who are fives. We are excited to talk about these. So a five parent is going to notice subtle shifts in a child's behavior that others might not see because you see so much. For example, you might be the first to notice that your child's overwhelmed in a very high intensity environment, high sensory environment, and know that they need a little time to themselves. They also model healthy boundaries and the importance of recharging, which, again, in this anxious world, kids need more than ever. And we need to have our finger on the pulse of that. So fives, you bring so much important to the table with that. So helping kids take quiet time for themselves. A five shows kids that everyone needs space sometimes,
Yes.
and that it's okay to ask for it. They also, fives, you are steady and intentional, which when kids are having really big emotions, you can help ground them. Just what David was talking about that he noticed inside of himself, kids are going to do the same. And you can help them get back to a place of calm because of that. So your child's melting down over a lost toy. You can give such a steady, even-keeled response of saying, I can tell you're really upset. Let's find that toy together. Rather than, I don't know where that toy is. All the things any of the rest of us might do. You're going to be steady and safe in the midst of that.
You mean to talk about some struggles that five
Yes.
parents could face? So fives, you could retreat into your own thoughts and leave family members feeling disconnected, not intentionally, but a spillover effect of what they could experience. You could also unknowingly minimize feelings or seem unresponsive when kids need warmth. Now, think on the language of that. It's not that you aren't offering warmth, it's that kids might experience you as not being warm. So you want to think about, how can I continue to pay attention to this measured amount of energy, as Sissy talked about earlier. We love that wisdom from Suzanne Stabile. If you can't change how you see, you can change what you do with how you see. So you can't change that measured amount of energy phenomena that plays out in you, but what you do with that, you could develop practices around. You could also feel easily drained by the constant demands. And that's just an important thing, I think, to acknowledge in general, because kids, particularly on the front side of development, have a lot of needs. They have a lot of needs for affection. They have a lot of needs for attention. They have a lot of needs for listening. They have a lot of needs for guidance. They have a lot of needs just for the basics of laundry and cooking and all the different parts and pieces that are just involved in the everyday life of a family. And that can be incredibly draining to any number, and in particular one that has a measured amount of energy. You want to talk about some growth for fives?
Yes. So really, as David is saying, parenting is going to feel like a stretch on many days out of all of the things that they need from you when it feels like your energy is draining and you will not feel like you have enough or you are enough. And we would want to remind you that God chose you
Yes.
to be the parent of each of your kids, even the ones with a lot of needs. And he knew that you have exactly the right amount. And that when you don't feel like you have enough, it is good for them to watch you model what refueling looks like, taking time for yourself looks like. We give out of an overflow of what we receive. And so it is especially important, as we're talking about, for you to do the things that fill you back up. And at the same time, we don't want to stay retreated in the ways that we get filled back up. And I love the verse in Judges 6:14, where God tells Gideon to go in the strength that he has. And Gideon does a lot of arguing back about how he doesn't have enough. And God's response is, I will be with you. And so even as you think about that, to remember that you're not alone in the midst of feeling like you don't have enough. There is so much strength that you have, and you have someone on your team and inside of you that has even more for exactly what your kids need.
And that is a great jumping off point to talk about some grace for fives. A mantra that we would love to have you consider is the whole concept of manna, and that God will give you what you need when you need it, not before you need it, not after you need it, but when you need it. And I would encourage any parent of an elementary age child or an adolescent to think back on the season of having a newborn and that feeling that I think every one of us has of there is no way that I can function in the world on this little sleep. And then you turn around and do it the next night and the next night and the next night and the next night, and you somehow made it through the days. And you look back and think, I don't know how I made it through the days, because it was manna. God gave you the energy you needed for that day to get through, to go back into the next night of being up with a newborn and feeding in the middle of the night, and then turning around and doing what you needed to do the next day. So I think it's great to reflect back on that season. You might want to even look back at photos from that season and see your sweet, tired self and think, oh my goodness, I did indeed make it through that. And look how exhausted I was and got what I needed.
Okay, let's talk about 3 things we want for every 5 parent.
Love that.
Number 1, we want you to express warmth and not just wisdom. And you all may have heard us talk about this before, but when I was writing The Worry-Free Parent, one of the statistics that I came across was that anxiety in kids is often linked to a lack of parental warmth. And you are warm as 5s. It is inside of you. The 2 5s you're going to get to hear in our next episode are incredibly warm people. And it is easy to retreat, to feel fearful and retreat into wisdom, to retreat into information and facts. Your kids need your warmth. And so to think about, how do you move towards that? And how do you move past the discomfort and into more of a place of vulnerability and connection? It is okay if you feel awkward, even with physical affection in your kids. It's okay if you feel awkward talking about your feelings. We would encourage you to do it anyway, that they need vulnerability, that they need connection in those ways. They need warmth from you. And they'll want to hear your wisdom too, but the warmth matters so much. Is our first idea. You want to tell them the second?
I would love to. Practice presence over preparation. And instead of over researching every parenting challenge, we want to challenge you to lean into just being with your child in the moment. And growth there may look like choosing connection, a hug, a kind word, play of some kind before analysis or advice. And please hear Sissy and I being on your team in such an understandable way with this, because we have to choose connection over task.
Yes.
We could absolutely be going towards something else as well. So where it's not intuitive, it's something we can practice in the direction of. And even small gestures. These don't have to be giant leaps, but small steps. What's a third idea?
The last would be to engage with emotions, yours and theirs. Because again, we can live in that place of facts a lot and information rather than emotion, and they need you to engage with their emotions. They need you to share yours and share in theirs, both. And we talk so much about the idea of empathy and questions, but I think for you, we might back it up a step and say, I think when we are not naming emotions and offering empathy, our questions can become robotic and problem solving. that they don't have the same heart between what do you think would help? So when we can say, I can tell that you're frustrated, which we said before is a unique skill set of yours. You see that early. I can tell that you're feeling overwhelmed. I would feel overwhelmed in that too. I feel overwhelmed sometimes too. I feel overwhelmed right now too. What do you want to do together? Then we can move towards the problem solving, but not until we've stopped off at naming and empathizing with kids.
So let's talk for a minute about some things to consider if you think you're raising a 5 child. So first idea would be to reassure them that they're safe and have enough. At their core, 5s, as we've been discussing, fear depletion, that they won't have enough energy, knowledge, or resources. And we want to reassure these kids that their needs are going to be met and they don't have to hoard or hide. These are kids who are going to benefit from hearing us say things like, you know what, we're actually going to have plenty of rest time after the birthday party. Or we are going to do this activity on Friday night, but guess what? We're going to be home all Saturday morning. Like identifying those times of resting and refueling are of particular importance, I think, for these kids.
Second, we would say invite, but don't pressure relationships. And that is relationships with you and relationships with others. 5s are going to operate in the world as kids with sometimes a lot more social anxiety than other kids do. And as in all things anxiety related, we want to be aware of that. We want to be aware of what they need, offer empathy, and gently push them toward doing the hard thing in the way that they need it. And sometimes we can, especially if we're extroverted, and you could go back and listen to the extrovert and introvert episode could be helpful here, but it's easy to push them towards doing huge birthday parties or huge gathering. A 5 is often not going to want to go to a huge gathering.
Yes.
And so helping them learn that 3 friends rather than 15 can be more of what brings them to life and what they love. And helping them find 3 friends that are safe, steady friends can be really helpful in the process. And even with you, I want you to be aware of not chasing them to their room when they get home from school, because a lot of 5s are not going to have a lot of answers. Their cup has been really drained by the end of the school day, and so they're going to need some refueling time. Let them have some time and space in their room. And then after dinner, have them go on a walk with you and learn to be comfortable in silence too, because relationship doesn't just happen in conversation, it happens in silence. And that's an important thing, I think, for us to learn when we love 5s. And so appreciating all of those things. And then at the same time, I remember a 5 that I worked with who talked about how she would hide behind her face. And her face was blank so much of the time. And I think relationships were harder because of that. She had a hard time accessing warmth. And so helping gently encourage her, role play with her, practice with her was really important when she was younger. So then she could move towards those 3 friends, not 15, but still those 3, and allowing herself to be vulnerable with people that she found that were safe. So they're going to need a lot of empathy, a lot of encouragement, and then some gently nudging as we invite them towards relationship.
Gosh, that's so good. We want to also nurture their curiosity. 5s love to learn and explore topics deeply, and we want to encourage you to let them really explore those passions, even if those interests seem quirky or kind of outside mainstream interests. I have had so many boys who wanted to do a deep dive into dinosaurs, reptiles, amphibians, like outer space. And so think on how you could really nurture that. Like, let's get a membership to the zoo. Let's go to the library and check out some books. Let's find a planetarium we could go visit and invite that curiosity, which I think is a superpower for a lot of 5s.
And I would add to that, David, I think a lot of girls that I have seen that are 5s feel really uncomfortable in their own skin. And I think because there is such a creative bent, they're highly intelligent. They appreciate these things that are kind of out of the box. I think the more as the grownups who love them, the more we can immerse ourselves in those things with them, learn about those things because they would love to teach us. I think about the shows, the quirky shows that girls who are, I can almost guess for you the shows that girls who are 5s will love. And it may not be shows that you love, but like we talk about with every child, be a student of what your kids love and do those things with them. And especially for a 5, I think a hack could be watching a show with them.
Right.
Because anything you can do where they don't feel pressure to carry the conversation is going to be really helpful. And these kids have so many immense gifts, as do you as 5s. And we want to help them know early on that those things are gifts. There's so much good, not only that they bring into the world, but in who they are.
Yes.
And we would say the same is true for you as parents, too. David, what a team we have that we get to call friends who help make this podcast possible. Chris Starrett, our engineer.
Our management team at KCH.
And we are thrilled to be a part of the That Sounds Fun network.
Our music was created by the insanely talented Dave Haywood of Lady A.
And if this podcast felt helpful to you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all the things.
We are grateful for you and cheering you on always.